Something strange in Oklahoma. Pilar and her brother Reuben were exploring the new neighborhood on their bicycles. They had been to the park, stopped at the library to get new library cards, and now they were pedaling home for lunch. It was late August with only one more week of summer vacation before school began. When Pilar and Reuben's parents first announced that the family was moving from Brooklyn to Oklahoma City, Pilar was unenthusiastic. She wondered if she would be bored in her new home after living in a crowded city all her life. Her old neighborhood had so many people, it seemed like every building held a million mysteries. But here in her new home, Pilar observed mostly trees. Lately, she'd been seeking out excitement in books, and she'd already devoured every mystery and ghost story she owned. When she and Reuben embarked on their bike adventure, it had been her idea to make the library a required stop. Pilar had settled in to read the first book she borrowed when she felt an insistent tap on her shoulder. She rolled her eyes. Little brothers could be so annoying. Without turning, she said, "Quit it, Reuben, I'm reading." Then she heard Reuben calling to her from his room, "Pilar, that's not funny." A moment later, Reuben charged into her room. "Don't touch my stuff," he yelled, his mouth inches from her nose. "I don't know what you're talking about." Pilar moved so she was slightly farther away from Reuben and turned back to her book. But Reuben was not going away. "Don't lie. You lined up all my action figures. I had them the way I liked them, and you moved them around." "I'm really not interested in your action figures," Pilar said in her superior older sister voice. Reuben stomped off yelling, "Mom! Pilar touched my stuff!" It was only after he left her room that Pilar had a chance to wonder about something. If it wasn't Reuben who tapped her shoulder before, then who or what had? That night, Pilar was still awake, reading her book, when the rest of the household was asleep. She was just getting to the most exciting part of the mystery when she heard a creaking sound outside her bedroom door. "It's probably Reuben walking to the bathroom," she told herself. But something irked her, and she got up to look. The bathroom door was partly open, and she could see the nightlight burning, but Reuben was nowhere to be seen. Pilar walked down the hall and peeked into his room. He was fast asleep in his bed, snoring. Maybe the snoring was what I heard, Pilar thought, though she didn't really believe it. She tried not to think about it as she went back to her room and turned off her reading light. As she felt herself begin to drift off into sleep, she heard an odd whistling sound that seemed to echo around in her room. Pilar's rational mind told her that old houses creaked and the wind could whistle as it blew through small cracks and crevices. But her rational mind was little comfort, and it took a long time for her to fall asleep. The next morning at breakfast, Reuben had more complaints about Pilar. "Your weird music woke me up last night," he accused her. "I wasn't playing music," Pilar said truthfully, pouring cereal into a bowl and adding some milk. After breakfast, Pilar finished her book and took Reuben with her to the library. "Just admit it," Reuben said as they walked. "You've been playing jokes on me all week." "I would love to admit that," Pilar said, "but I really haven't been. Maybe if we could stop fighting for a minute, we could figure out what's really going on." But Reuben just crossed his arms angrily and picked up his pace toward the library. When they got home, Pilar found a sunny spot in their yard to read her new book. And when it got too hot, she moved to the shade of a statuesque old willow tree that was growing next to the fence. Pilar leaned her back against the wide trunk and continued reading. "Hey, how did you do that?" Reuben asked, running over to Pilar. "Do what?" Pilar asked, getting up. She turned and saw what had attracted Reuben's attention. There was a mark in the tree trunk just above where she had been leaning, as if someone had started to carve something there. As the siblings watched mesmerized, the carving grew till it formed the shape of an arrow pointing down to the ground next to the fence. I think the tree is telling us we're supposed to dig here," Reuben said. "Well," Pilar said, swallowing her fear in a big gulp, "I guess let's dig then." Reuben got a shovel from the shed, and they took turns digging. It wasn't long before the shovel clanged against something hard, which she figured was just a tree root. But then she realized that the thing she hit was flat. It was not a tree root, but rather the top of a box. Pilar doubled the speed of digging until finally Reuben could reach down and pull the box free. He brushed the dirt off its intricately carved top and slowly opened it. Pilar leaned over Reuben's shoulder to see. Inside the box was an old yellowed map. Narrative writing, number 6 on page 206. You will write your response on a loose leaf sheet of paper. Write an ending to the passage, "Something Strange in Oklahoma," that tells what Reuben and Pilar do with the map. Use descriptive language, a clear sequence of events, transition words, and dialogue to continue and conclude the passage in an interesting way. Make sure the characters and point of view are consistent with the rest of the passage. You may plan your ending in a space below. Write it on your loose leaf paper.